Okay, still people who join in, and if it's like last week, then we'll probably continue to have people join as we get going. So I'd like to welcome you to week number 2 of the ACT MOOC live sessions. This week, as we're only running this first time in English, we're unfortunately we don't have a translator beside us. But if you do text or type something into the text box, then that would be just fine. We will be spending up to 1 hour, and like I said, I expect that people will continue to drop in. So thank you very much for coming and making yourself available. And now I'd like to pass it over to Dr. Michael Thorpe, who's going to walk us through some of the week 2 activities. So welcome, and Michael, it's on to you.
Thank you very much, Nathaniel, and welcome everybody. This is week 1. This is a bit of a learning curve for us, and if you have any queries or problems, please just jump in. But those that don't have access to the microphone, you can type in your queries or questions or comments in the chat box down the bottom, and we'll be able to pick those up as we go through. The first thing we want to do is just to make sure everybody's comfortable in moving around the session. So we've got a point there, number 1. If there's any questions about the week 1 activities, that was the session that was conducted by Nathaniel last week, where we just looked at the setup of the platform. So is everybody comfortable with that? Are there any problems or uncertainty about what's happening there? Perhaps Nathaniel could help out there as well if there are any problems. Is everybody okay with that? Perhaps you can indicate.
Actually, Michael, just before you get going, maybe I'll just run through people because some people may or may not be familiar. Right underneath your name, there's a series of 4 icon sets. The first one shows these icons that show laughing or smiling or applause, hands up. If you go to the next one, you actually, the next button actually puts you as away or not, turns you away or not. The next one allows you to put your hand up so that we know you have a question. That would be the 3rd button, and you have to press it to release it. And the 4th one is agreement, yes or no, and people are finding that. And after a few seconds, it'll click back. So if you want our attention, it'd be great. One of the ways we make sure that people can hear us is could everybody go, and if you can hear us, please check the checkbox off. Now, if you don't have access to that checkbox, we need to know so that we just can figure out some other way to watch you. So Sarah, if you guys want to type into the text box, if you can't find that little box, that'd be great. Sorry to interrupt you, Michael, and just so people know where all the buttons are, because some people are first time. Great, we're off. I can't hear you, Michael.
Excuse me, yes. Looks like everybody is happy with the week 1 activities, and people feel comfortable moving around the platform from the ticks that we saw. So we can move on now and look at the week 2 resources and materials. Perhaps just before we look at those, and we do have some comments or questions from the discussion board, which was posted for this week. But before we move on to specifically to those questions, perhaps if there's people with any general comments or observations or questions which would be of interest or they're uncertain about, then perhaps they could just raise that now before we start. So the best way to do that would just be to raise your hand. Yusuf, you've got your hand raised. Do you have a question or comment? Yusuf, can you hear us? Oh, you can't hear. Okay. Well, perhaps you may be able to just follow through on the screen. And the session, yes, as Nathaniel indicates there, the session is recorded. Okay, so assuming then that everybody is has no sort of real comments. Okay, I'm just picking up Yusuf's comment there. So perhaps if we look at the first point of discussion there, the changing nature of the Chinese economy, looking at some of the factors which suggest emerging opportunities for business. Can we identify exactly what's going on there? Anyone have some observations about the major shifts taking place in China at the moment? Anything that's come to your attention? If people want to talk, it's a matter of pressing the phone and engaging, or through the typing in the chat box.
Actually, Michael, maybe what we could do is, if you don't mind, we'll go back to that slide number 1 and just make sure everybody knows where we're at. Just to watch so people can see if that's all right. We're at the very beginning. So some of the things that people may or may not be aware of that I guess we should run through is there is a new video available this week. And in that little video, Michael talked about how the changing economy is going in, or how China's consumers are changing that economy. So one of the things that it'd be good to have anybody's feedback or comments about is, do you have any questions about the resources that we've got and posted for this week regarding that first question?
Yeah, or comments generally on any of the videos in terms of their accessibility and usefulness. Just responding to Kara's point there about the growing middle class, can you elaborate on that? What do you think that might mean, growing middle class? How will that manifest itself or show itself in terms of business opportunities? Okay, in trade, certainly there's likely to be opportunity for more products going into that market. Now, I guess what we're focusing on and what we will be looking at in more detail next week is what sort of areas, and Hong Fei has suggested tourism, and we've seen the figures, for example, that in Australia, the Chinese visitors are the number 2 in terms of the tourist sector, but they're also the biggest spenders in Australia, and that seems to be very much a growing market. Education is another. Why? So what is this? What is this? These things: tourism, education. Why? What are they symptomatic or indicative of? Do you think? What sort of consumer are we talking about?
I think we're talking about luxury markets increasingly, and I think it's becoming more affordable to more people in China. And just from personal experience, I see younger Chinese people being more willing to spend their money rather than to save everything as their parents' generation may have.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point. I think one of the graphs that we saw during the week is that the population is aging, but we can separate the market perhaps into broadly 2 areas. And clearly there's more segmentation than that, but just broadly speaking, we have an older generation, as we just mentioned, which historically has been more concerned with security, saving. But the younger generation in China, they've all been born since 1978. Remember, 1978 was the watershed moment when China really started to change direction. And so this younger generation of Chinese have known a completely different environment. They've grown up in a situation where there's less want and much more affluence, and so their attitudes are going to be quite different. But the thing about these particular categories of products, as was mentioned, is that they're all sort of high-end or more products associated with more affluence. So what we're seeing is a more sophisticated consumer. In the past, if you've been to China, it's been viewed as a mass market, a fairly standardized product, but now people are much more discerning. So the Chinese consumers want quality. They're very, very brand conscious, and the market is much more segmented than in the past.
Michael, I think I had a question there. If you want to just take a question from Melissa, and then
I see Kara's comment about educated people. I'm responding now to Kara's observation about the over-education of the population. I wouldn't say there's too many educated people for the number of jobs. What is happening with the rebalancing in China is that one particular focus is to try to get more people into service jobs, and that's a feature of economic development. So China is trying to create more high-end, value-added, more technologically intensive employment, so away from the labour-intensive mass manufacturing of the past. So it's a bit of a chicken and egg, I guess. The Chinese needs a more educated population to move up to the next level of production, and so there will be some I guess adjustment period while those jobs are being created. But I don't know if anyone has any comments on that particular point.
I think for young Chinese people who have an education, and particularly those who can speak English, there seems to be a huge amount of opportunities at the moment. And I think sometimes it can be almost overwhelming for these people. So an issue, for example, for employers or people wanting to invest in training people in young China is actually retaining these young, educated talents, because there's so much opportunity. You know, you have to really be able to offer them something special to keep them.
I think that's a problem for foreign companies. They're trying to attract, local staff. They train them up and then they move on often to competitors or set up their own businesses even. A lot of young Chinese are looking to be very entrepreneurial. And so, yeah, it is a very competitive market, particularly in the established centres and the big cities. But as we've noted, I think what's happening is there's a big push for spreading development, moving investment into the central and western regions of the country. And so a lot of those areas are very underdeveloped compared to the rest of the country. So there's increasingly opportunities there in those new emerging centres. I did notice there's a comment about the wine industry, and that's also indicative of the more sophisticated changing, patterns of the consumer, and that's related to another more general aspect, which is the changing dietary habits of consumers, and so that's reflected, for example, in increasing imports of beef, mutton, lamb, these sorts of products, imported wine, dairy products. These are foodstuffs which are not generally associated with the Asian market or the Asian population, but a lot of the demand in China is switching to a more, if you like, a more Western style diet. But certainly China does have a big established wine industry, and there's a lot of investment in that industry by Australian companies, French wine producers as well, working with Chinese.
From my experience with distributing wine in mainland China, I think you see a shift as well, away from just Bordeaux reds, which are kind of prestige, expensive wines consumed at banquets to sort of impress clients and family and friends, to people starting to consume wine on a more regular basis. And so I think this is going to offer more opportunities for the Australian sector to break in to everyday kind of table wines rather than just special occasion wines.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting and important point, that the very high end wines has been something, isn't it? It's flashy. It's a way of showing your wealth or showing your appreciation for guests. But it's a matter of the broader market becoming more sophisticated, and so it becomes a wider consumed product, as you say. It becomes more acceptable to have sort of mid-range products. I noticed Sarah's made a comment about the population being too large. I was just wondering if anyone has a comment on that. Do you think that this is a problem, China's massive population? And what do we mean by too large or too big or massive?
Maybe, Michael, you want to go back to that other page where we have those questions and just see if the next page, I think it was comment on the changing nature. Yep, there we go. So it'd be great if people could share some of the things that, if when you were finished the session, the people that are here in the joined our session, it would be great if you could go into the discussion board and actually put your comments down, not necessarily the ones you have here, because this will be recorded, but if you wouldn't mind adding a comment, that'd be appreciated, because these are in the dialogue and other people are wondering what to put. And so then we can go on to perhaps the next question, or whatever you'd like to do, Michael.
So Cara has responded there to Sarah's point about the population, saying that it's hard to manage or control quality. The one-child policy, that creates its own problems in terms of has created a problem in terms of the gender mix, but also it's reflected in the aging of the population. That group we saw on one of the graphs, the 15 to 64-year-olds population is going to decline over time by 2020. So there's less entrants coming into the workforce. That group 15 to 64, they're the big consuming and asset purchasing, home buying group. But with the aging population, I mean, that throws up another issue, and we're still on this, I guess, this first point, the changing nature of the Chinese economy, emerging growing opportunities. Two areas where there's likely to be opportunities. One is in health services. You've got an aging population, and just as we're seeing in countries like Australia and other Western countries with an aging population, there's increased demand for health services, for health care. So whether it's actual service or whether it's pharmaceuticals and medicine, so that's going to be a big market in China. I know a lot of the pharmaceutical companies and health providers are viewing that, and also wealth management, because the older population is going into retirement mode, and Australia has a lot of experience with now managing superannuation funds and even individual wealth management, private banking. So these are areas of opportunity associated with an aging population. And further to the point about the large population, the large population has to be fed, and as we saw, I think in one of the slides, the capacity of the Chinese economy to keep producing higher levels of agricultural output is limited. It's a larger land mass than Australia, but their capacity to produce, their arable land is much less, and so they're going to be relying increasingly on imported foodstuffs. And then one aspect of that we'll be looking at later is the Chinese looking to invest outwardly in agricultural land, and that's become a political issue, hasn't it, in Australia at the moment. One approach of the Chinese with energy and also now agricultural output is a preference, if you like, to enter into partnerships with foreign suppliers to ensure long-term reliable supplies into the Chinese market. So there's opportunities for Australian companies, say Australian farmers, to link up with Chinese investors and then produce for export into the Chinese market. Again, coming back to the sophistication, what the Chinese want is quality in foodstuffs. It's guaranteed quality.
Michael, I find it a little bit confusing, the position of the media in Australia on these sorts of issues, not just about investment in agricultural land, but also investment in property. And I was just wondering what your views were on and how you think the new government in Australia is going to respond to these issues.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very much a political football, and it's one that, as you say, the media's picked up on. I think I made the point during the video presentations that Australia's always had massive levels of foreign investment. We rely on foreign investment since Federation because we have relatively low savings levels in Australia. We have this very small population, but given the size of the continent and the demand for infrastructure that goes with it, we need investment, and so that investment has traditionally had to come from overseas, and usually in the past it's been the US, UK, in Japan into the mining sector, and there's been periods of controversy about that. Now it's the Chinese turn, and so it gets picked up by the media. But if you look at the total level of investment in Australia, in terms of the stock of investment that's come in over many years, the Chinese level is less than 2% of the total investment that's come into Australia. It's just that, I guess at the moment, again, as we've seen, looking at the Foreign Investment Review Board site, which was highlighted in one of the presentations, in the last few years, China has emerged as the second largest investor. And they are going into, I guess, controversial areas, but are they controversial? If you look at the agricultural sector, we have a long history of UK investors in agriculture, in farms and pastoral properties. In terms of the current situation, certainly the coalition is going to be split a little bit. Barnaby Joyce, who's the Minister for Agriculture, and he's part of the Country Party side of the coalition. They're very much anti the Chinese investment, anti-foreign investment in agriculture. So it's going to be a tricky one for the coalition. And just on that point, with the free trade agreement that's being discussed and that Mr. Abbott is talking about wanting to push through over the next 12 months, one thing that the Chinese particularly want from that free trade agreement is better access for foreign investment into Australia by Chinese investors. So they're going to have to reconcile this issue somehow. To turn that around, if you look at and you talk to individual businesses, and in agriculture we're talking about individual farms, a lot of farmers, a lot of enterprises are crying out for investment, because Australian banks and Australian sources of investment funding don't seem to be prepared or willing, that interested to invest in agriculture in Australia for various reasons. And so Australian farmers are quite happy to take that investment, but it's almost as if their political leaders are taking a different view. And that's some comment on that.
Michael, how much does the fear of communism still play into this in the Australian psyche?
I don't think it's a matter of communism anymore. I think China's well and truly down the road of being a market economy. As you said, market socialism. I don't think many people think in those terms. It's probably more perhaps racial, perhaps, to put it in those terms. The fact that it's investment from Asia rather than traditionally, from the UK. There may be some elements of that, but perhaps people might have some observation on that. I think it's something that needs to be considered. I mean, do you have some views on that yourself, or any other participants have any views on that?
I'm not sure, just from having Australian guests visit China, I think a lot of people still firmly believe that China is communist, and when they visit mainland China, they're surprised at what a sort of open kind of market China now is. And I guess that people somehow have some problems reconciling the two.
I see what you're saying. I mean, you're talking about so people that haven't witnessed China firsthand and looking at it maybe through the media, they just view it as this totalitarian country and that's probably played up a little bit or comes through in terms of the discussion about state-owned enterprises, because they're still a major part of the economy. That's a hangover and a reflection of the centrally planned economy, and it's these large state-owned enterprises which are doing a lot of the investing overseas, or particularly getting the headlines in the investing in mining and in some agricultural areas. And so they're seen as arms of the state, if you like. And so that sort of ties back into this thing that it's the Chinese government which is taking over the agricultural land. It's the Chinese government which is investing in resource sector. And that's seen as somehow different from it being a private company or with more commercial interests. So there is a lot of debate around this, but a lot of the state-owned enterprises are very much on a commercial footing these days. And this is something that people may want to investigate themselves. There's a lot of material written and a lot of debate about state-owned enterprises and their freedom and their commercial focus, as opposed to being directed by government. But that's a whole matter of debate, which people could follow up themselves. It's quite an interesting topic.
Adolf, if you could just test your mic. I think you're having some problems with your microphone turning on and off and on and off. So if you wouldn't mind just doing a mic or test your audio, that would help out. And thank you very much. We're about halftime there, Michael, so just to let you know. I did have one question. I heard recently about you had the factors that have changed or shaped the Australian economic outlook. I've been hearing recently that in Australia there's comments again about trying to bring down the cost of mining employment and stuff like that. Is that going to make any difference to trade with China or not?
So you're talking about bringing down costs in Australia, Nathaniel?
Yes, that's what I'd heard, that some of the large mining companies are saying, well, we need to bring the costs of of everything down. So, is that going to have will that shape what the Australian economic outlook will be like in terms of trade parts?
Just particularly, taking up the discussion in the context of the mining sector. Certainly, it's much more competitive for Australian producers now going into the Chinese market. So, with Brazil and other suppliers going into that market, so cost pressures seem to be a big issue for Australian companies, and they're are looking at ways to reduce costs, and that's being seen in the Western Australian context, where there's a lot of automation going on now on the mine sites, and these are all part of the attempt to reduce costs. I think the current government is aware of that, and there's probably a need to further streamline the labour markets in Australia, and that's something that will probably be on the agenda over the next year or two. But it's not just in the mining sector, but I think generally Australia needs to be very competitive now to get into the Chinese market, because there's a lot of competition in those markets. I was just wondering whether people have any comments about what's happening in Australia and what's impacting the Australian economy, or likely to impact over the next few years. What would people identify perhaps as a major influence, say in the recent past? What's been one of the main drivers of what's been going on in Australia in terms of the Australian economy? Anyone like to hazard a comment? Very good, Nathaniel. Top mark from Nathaniel. Higher dollar. So, and declining mining interests. Cara, would you like to just elaborate on that, declining mining interests? I think while Cara's, here we go. Yeah, Cara's point about the declining mining boom, we did mention that in one of the presentations this week. Would anyone like to make observation about the so-called mining boom? Do people agree that it's declining, or have any comment about the nature of the mining sector in Australia at the moment, particularly the export side of it? We did talk about different phases of the boom, so-called. People have gone quiet. I can't hear any comment or see any comment. Yeah, just Carr has added some comments about less drilling and so on. Yeah, what we mentioned during the week in one of the presentations, we're talking about 3 phases of the mining boom. In the early phase, what we call the first phase, probably going back 6 or 8 years or more, there's increased demand, say, coming from China for iron ore, coal, so on. And that's reflected in higher prices. So initially the mining companies go through a massive boost to profits because their prices go up. In response to this, there's a bit of a lag. Then they go into an investment phase to boost production to meet this growing demand. So in the first phase, it's, if you like, it's a bit of a free lunch. The price just goes up because there's a boost to demand. You take the higher profits, but taking a longer term view, you start to invest these profits back into investment, into increased production. So we went through that investment phase where there's a lot of exploration and development. And that was a big boost to the Australian economy. That hired a lot of engineers and construction staff, and so everybody was flying in and flying out. A lot of work on that phase. A lot of that investment now is tapering off because the production is starting to come on stream, and so we're moving from that second investment phase into a third phase, which is a supply phase. Where the production was coming on stream and we're exporting. So, and that third phase requires much less labour. And so, probably anecdotal, you may know of friends or experience where people have been laid off from the mining sector. That's because they were involved very much, or they may be geologists or engineers, construction people involved in that second phase, the investment phase. Whereas in the third phase, it's much less labour intensive. So it's just a change in nature. And the prices have fallen from that peak in the earlier phase as more supply, again, coming back to basic economics, supply and demand, as more suppliers come on, and it's not just Australia, but other countries are meeting that increased demand from China particularly. So increased supply has tempered the price rises. But again, the point was made in one of those presentations that we expect the prices to remain relatively high by compared to long-term historical standards. So it's more like the price levels in the 50s and 60s, not like the big price spikes of a few years ago.
No, Michael, Pierre shared that link there, and I tell you that's a really good commentary on whether it's dying or not. And so anyway, it says on the bottom there, the mining boom is far from dead. It's a third stage, the third stage event coming up. So that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that one, and we'll make sure people see it. We are heading out to 40 or 20 minutes left. Did you want to walk through the databases at all, or move on to the questions?
Yeah, thanks, Nathaniel, and thanks, Claire. I must confess, I saw the photo of Kevin Rudd and I got a bit startled, but once I got over that and looked at the details of the article, then it was fine. I recovered. Thanks for that. As Nathaniel mentioned, we can look at the database. I don't know if anybody's had a chance to look at any of these databases before coming online. These were given to you as links in the presentations. Has anyone had a chance to have a look? Elisa, you have? I take that as a green tick, yes. perhaps other people could just tick the box if they've had a look. Okay. Would people be interested in having a quick look at a couple of these databases? Again, you can tick the box. Yeah. We'll try this different mode here. So just bear with me for a minute. Right. Can everybody see this site? Okay. Can everybody see this on their screens? The United Nations website. Thanks, Jules, wherever you are. Lisa, Cara. Okay, so people are picking up that. Okay, by look at it. Sarah, I'm not so sure about. Okay, if you this is United Nations website. If you click on, as I will, the statistics tab there, and that should move to the next page. And on the right-hand side here, you see that there's a catalogue of indicators, and depending on what you're interested in, you can follow through. So we'll click on economic trends. Now, that's opened in a separate page, which you can't see. So Nathaniel, can you load that page there for me? Yeah, so thank you, Nathaniel. Sorry about the delay there, but when I clicked on that link, it went to a new page, which you weren't able to see here. So we've set this up previously. So if we have we can pick up here on economic trends, for example. We're wanting to look where exactly, say, the national account. So this folder is open, economic trends. So we go to one of these sources to get information. So perhaps we're interested in GDP figures, balance of payments. We may be interested in exports and imports, inflation, exchange rate. So we'll go to national accounts. And we've got several choices here. I'll just wait while that refreshes. Can everybody see that page now where we have nominal real GDP growth rates? People can all see that page. People can all see this page. You just like to just tick the box. Elisa, you can't see it. Jules can't see it. Okay. Nathaniel can see it. Okay, maybe what do I have to do? Follow me. So yes, I've clicked follow me. So can you see it now? Can people see it now?
Michael, I can see the front page with a series of folders, international trading, goods and services, down to market access.
Right, and on the right-hand side, can you see nominal real GDP growth rates?
No, should it be folding down? Okay.
Yeah, the economic trends should open up into some subfolders.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm clicking on that now, and I've moved to the next
subfolders,
page.
national accounts. Sorry, Michael.
Yeah, and if you click on national accounts, then it goes into some categories. I've clicked on nominal real GDP.
Okay, now the Excel spreadsheet's opened. Great.
Yeah. So can everybody see the Excel spreadsheet? Yep. Okay. Once we're here, so we can look at particular economies. So we've got a wealth of information, so we could go for look at a measure year economy. So if we click on economy there, then that gives us a list of countries. So for example, we could just choose China. Then we could look at year, having clicked on China. So just delete those years and just maybe look at some recent years. So back to 2000. And then look at the measure. So we have these 4 measures, so US dollars, current prices, constant prices. So we're looking here at so we'll look maybe just at constant prices per capita, which is per head of population, and in millions of dollars. And then we go to show table. And so that should have just been for China there. So come back here. Quickly. That's something's happened there. It should have just come up with China. So I won't delay too much looking at that. People can have a look at that themselves, because we are probably running out of time here. So I'll leave that one, and perhaps we'll just quickly go to the next one. Nathaniel, can we load the World Bank one? Yes, thank you. So this is a different database. This is the World Bank database. And if I click on databases here, in this tab, you could spend some time looking here. You can do it different ways. If we just click on databases, and this is looking at, say, for example, World Development Indicators. Can everybody see this page? So again, if we just want to focus, I just clicked here on upper middle income. It just narrows the range of countries. So let's just click on China there. And down the bottom here it says series and time. So I just clicked on China. Now I click on series. So there's a range of options here. So for example, let's look at the environment. Say energy production and use, for example. Might be interesting. So we could look here at energy use per capita, say for China, and look at time. So we could look at, say, the last few years. And we can view that as a chart. We go up to the top right-hand corner. We could view it as a table or a chart. So there we have China's energy use per capita over the last period from 2001 to 2012. If you like, if you go to the right here, we could add a country, add more countries. So if I click on there, so perhaps it might just be useful to compare China with the United States. So if you add the United States. So if you just update. Now if we click on the United States, then we have the figure there for the United States. So what we can see is looking at the axis here over this time from 8,000 kilograms of oil equivalent. So we're looking at that level, and we can compare that to the figure that we saw for China. I know we're running out of time here, but just to reiterate on this particular data bank, we just looked here at energy usage, kilograms of oil equivalent, but there's a whole raft of things that we could have been looking at. If we go back to the series that so you've got education, environment, economic, health, and within each of those, for example, health, mortality, nutrition, population. So you can spend a lot of time in here generating tables, generating charts, getting information. And as you can see, this particular data bank, you can go to Chinese, Japanese, French, Espanol, whatever you might choose. Okay, so perhaps we'll leave the data bank there. Does anyone have any comments or thoughts on the data bank, if they found that useful? People were able to see what was happening there.
I think somewhat, Michael. Depends on people's internet connection and also what kind of machine you're on, because if you're trying to access a database while watching this session, it might interfere. But remember, the recording will have that, and we'll cover that little segment in there again, so a person could always quickly take a look at it, and it'll be posted, I hope, tomorrow.
Yeah. Certainly, if you, as Nathaniel said, the session is recorded, so you can go back and have a look and walk through these databases. And if you have any problems, then you can post that online, any queries, or we can pick it up again in next week's discussion and have a look again at particular aspects of it. Just before we conclude, because we've just reached our time limit, are there any other observations or comments? And I do appreciate everyone being here. This is our first run through, so we're on a bit of a learning curve and seeing how this particularly works out. So any comments would be appreciated. And as we suggested, Nathaniel's in Canada, in Alberta at the moment, so we thank you very much for being with us, whatever the time of day or night it is, Nathaniel. I'm sure you must be tired, and we appreciate you being here. But any comments or feedback is appreciated. Thanks. Yes, Elisa, all the slides and the presentations, they're all saved. So what we've done today will be recorded and available. And of course, all the presentations from the week are still there.
Great, and with that, Michael, we'll call a close to it if that's all right. And I know people are headed off for lunch and other places, different parts of the world, different things. But yeah, thank you very much for joining us all this week. We will continue to have discussion and stuff online. Again, it would be appreciated if you could put a comment or two just to get the conversations going for people that didn't join, and I'll make sure that we post the link in that discussion spot so people can review it on the weekend. And we'll see everybody next Friday at the same time. And Michael, are you going to be in Hong Kong next week?
Yes, I'll actually be in Hong Kong next Friday, but I'll be here inside of you or whatever it is. So I'll be speaking to you from Hong Kong, and hopefully I'll have a colleague with me, Dr. Joseph Fung from Hong Kong Baptist University. So with a bit of luck, he'll be with me. But thank you very much, everyone, for being with us today, and hopefully it was instructive. And please do get into the site, post some comments, post some observations, have a look around, and share your thoughts with us. Thank you. Bye-bye.